All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to try and decode a thinker who completely flipped the script on how we see science, technology, and, well, even ourselves. We're talking about Donna Haraway. We're going to explore her argument that science tells powerful stories and how those stories literally shape our reality. So let's get into it. So let me start with a question that really gets to the very heart of Haraway's work. How can a scientific story about a monkey also somehow be a story about us, about our own society, our politics, our deepest held beliefs? I mean, it seems like it shouldn't be, right? Facts are just facts. But Haraway urges us to look a whole lot closer. And this right here, this is the core idea. For Donna Haraway, science is one of the most powerful forms of storytelling we have. It doesn't just uncover objective facts, it weaves those facts into compelling narratives. And these stories, they don't just describe the world, they actively shape it, defining what we think of as natural, as normal, and even what we can imagine as possible. Okay, so to really get a feel for how this works in practice, we're going to start right where Haraway did, with a study of our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, the primates. Let's take a look at how the stories we've told about them have been used to write the rules for us. You see, for a long time, the study of primates was used to, well, naturalize certain human behaviors. Scientists would go out, observe monkeys and apes, and what did they see? They saw what looked like intense male competition, strict hierarchies, lots of aggression. And then, those observations were brought back and used to argue that things like patriarchy or a competitive dog-eat-dog society, well, those weren't just social constructs. They were in our biology. It was just natural. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. You've got two different scientists looking at primates and telling two completely different stories. On one hand, you have Zuckerman, who's looking through an economic lens and sees everything as male competition for females. He even calls them the means of production. But then you have Rowell, who sees the whole social order as a system designed to avoid stress. So the question isn't just who's right. The more interesting question is, how did their own perspectives, their own worlds, shape the very facts they saw? Which brings us to one of Haraway's most powerful lines, reality has an author. It's such a simple but profound statement. Scientific facts aren't just out there, floating around like apples waiting to be picked from a tree. They're produced. They're made by real people, with real biases, living in a particular moment in history using very specific language. The story always changes depending on who's telling it. Okay, so this whole idea that science is really a form of storytelling, it doesn't just stop with monkeys and apes, not by a long shot. Haraway argues that the very language, the core metaphors of biology itself, have shifted dramatically as our society has changed. So think about it. In the 20th century, this really powerful idea started to take over: human engineering. The goal became managing people, managing society, like a super efficient machine. And right along with that, biology itself started to change. It went from seeing life as this complex, balanced organism to seeing it more like a technical system that you could control, manage, and most importantly, optimize. And you can see that shift in thinking right here, laid out side by side. The old organism model uses words like balance, defect. The goal is just to get things back in harmony, right? Adjustment. But the new cybernetic model, it's all about communication, information, noise. And the goal is totally different. It's redesign. It's optimization. It's about making the system perform better. And this new way of thinking, it paves the way for fields like sociobiology. Suddenly, all of life is described using the language of capitalism. We're in a genetic marketplace, making investments for reproductive profit. Our bodies are just strategies that our genes are using. It even pulls language from the military, this idea of life as a command-control communication system. We're not just organisms anymore, we're information systems running a program. All right, so if traditional science is filled with all these hidden stories and biases, what do? Do we just give up on the idea of truth or objectivity altogether? Well, for Haraway, the answer is a hard no. Instead, she offers a totally new, really radical way of thinking about what it actually means to know something. Haraway has this absolutely brilliant phrase for the old school idea of scientific objectivity. She calls it the God trick of seeing everything from nowhere. It's this fantasy, right? That a scientist can be this disembodied neutral eye, just floating above the world, seeing everything perfectly, without any perspective, any history, any body. She says that's not just impossible, it's a pretty dangerous illusion. So what's her answer? It's something she calls situated knowledge.
And it's a simple but really profound idea. All knowledge comes from somewhere. It comes from a specific body, in a specific place, at a specific time. So instead of pretending we don't have a perspective, we need to own it. And here's the key. This doesn't kill objectivity. Haraway argues it actually makes it stronger because it forces us to be accountable for where we're standing. It's a more honest kind of truth.
And all of this leads us to her most famous, most provocative, and yeah, probably most misunderstood idea. To help us navigate this messy new world of tech and fractured identities, she gives us a new myth, a new kind of hero for our time. She gives us the cyborg. Now, forget the Terminator. Seriously, get the image of Arnold Schwarzenegger out of your head. For Haraway, the cyborg isn't some distant sci-fi future. It's our reality right now. We're all hybrids of machine and organism. I mean, your phone is basically an extension of your brain, right? Medical technologies are literally part of our bodies. We are all deeply, deeply entangled with our machines. The cyborg is both a map of our reality and a powerful story for our future. But here's where the cyborg gets really powerful. It's a concept that just smashes all those neat little boxes we've used to organize the world. Human versus animal, organism versus machine, nature versus culture, even male versus female. The cyborg lives in the messy in-between space, and it shows us that those boundaries were never really as solid as we pretended they were. And you can bet this has some massive political implications. In a world where these big, fixed identity categories like woman or race are being challenged and shown to be super complex, how do you build a movement? The cyborg offers an answer. We build community based on affinity, not identity. We don't have to be the same to be united. We can choose to build our connections based on shared goals and political kinship. It's a community built on choice, not on some biological destiny. So in the end, Haraway's work isn't just about tearing things down. It's actually a toolkit for building something new. By showing us that reality is a story, she gives us the power to start writing different ones. The cyborg is a kind of myth that lets us imagine futures beyond the old limits. So the question she leaves us with, the question I'll leave you with, is this. If we are all already cyborgs, what new futures can we decide to build together?